Hey guys and gals, it's your buddy Drew with Living History's Mysteries and Three-Eyed Raven Productions. You know, I hope you guys are enjoying the Irish American Heritage Month for 2023 here on the channel. Being of Irish descent myself, I had to take this month and look into a lot of the folklore, the myth, the legend, the history of that tiny country. You know, it just wouldn't be right to celebrate Irish American Heritage Month without looking into one of the biggest legends, one of the biggest pieces of folklore, one of the biggest myths to come out of Ireland and even creep its way into America. I know everybody has heard of the Leprechaun, the little green fella who supposedly has a pot of gold. And if you can capture that leprechaun, you can have that pot of gold. But it's also said in the myth that he's going to try to talk you out of that pot of gold, that single little pot. He's going to exchange it for 3 wishes. But are those wishes everything they're cut out to be? Today we're going to do things a little bit different. We're going to check in with someone who has done their research on the legend of the Leprechaun and done a real good job at it. Today, our guest narrator, our guest reporter, our guest storyteller is going to be Bryce from Esoteric Atlanta. This girl's awesome. This girl's awesome. I would collab with her anytime. Smarter than a whip. Check this out.
My name is Bryce, and today we're going to be talking about the legends of the Leprechaun. Now, I am not Irish at all. I have no Irish in me at all. Although I have been to Ireland, and it was a beautiful and super fun trip. But I do ask that you will have some patience with me as I get through the beginning part of the Leprechaun's history. You see, I'm not super well versed in Celtic or Gaelic dialect. And please understand if I do mispronounce a name, it's not out of disrespect. It's just simply not really knowing the dialect that well. All right, let's get started. So the leprechaun is defined as a supernatural being in Irish folklore. It is considered part of the fairy family, which I didn't know that when I started to research. I thought that was very, very interesting. Now, a lot of people claim that there are no female leprechauns, that there are only male leprechauns. Of course, that's super strange because how do you reproduce if you don't have any females? Well, a lot of people believe that the leprechauns possibly don't die or live extremely long lives. And in fact, some people believe that the leprechauns are the disfigured or possibly deformed children of the fairy kingdom. Again, I don't know if that's my opinion, but that is a belief as to why there are no females. However, people like John O'Donovan believe that the leprechaun are actually a form of the pygmies. Now, most people, when they think of the leprechaun, they think about the rainbow with the pot of gold. They know that the leprechaun is very mischievous, a little bit naughty, and in later folklore, more in our modern times, we see the leprechaun as being a shoe cobbler. What's also fascinating to note with the leprechaun is that the leprechaun wearing a green outfit is modern. That's a modern interpretation of this being. You see, before the 20th century, the leprechaun notoriously wore red. Although some people might tell you that depending on where you are in Ireland, that will depend upon the color that the leprechaun wears. Now, Ireland is not that big of a country. In fact, when I lived in England, I used to fly over Ireland to come back to the United States, and sometimes you could see Ireland from the airplane window, and it's really not that big. And in fact, the population of Ireland alone is the exact same population of the city of Atlanta. So we're talking about a relatively small country with these leprechauns wearing different outfits depending upon the territory where they live. Now, the first known reference we have to the leprechaun comes from a medieval Irish legend called Adventures of Fergus' son of Letty. You see, Ferguson mac Letty was the king of Ulster. And these were different territories that were ruled before the Norman invasion of Ireland in 1177. Now, the story goes that Ferguson mac Letty fell asleep on the beach. While he was sleeping, he woke up to find 3 leprechauns trying to drag his body into the ocean. Because Ferguson mac Letty woke up, he was able to catch his 3 little abductors. In fact, leprechaun is a medieval Irish word meaning small body. So again, this kind of goes back to the idea that they might be of pygmy origin, that they literally were small-bodied people. But as the rule goes, because Ferguson mac Letty had captured these leprechauns, they were supposed to now grant him 3 wishes. Now, they say that if you were to catch a leprechaun, you might not want to take those wishes because sometimes what you get is not actually what you wished for because, like I said, the leprechauns can be slightly mischievous. And then over time, the leprechaun became super famous in the Irish tradition. In fact, most people, when you say leprechaun, they'll probably think of Ireland first. People would see them, people would talk about these legends. It became much more than just folklore. So much so more than folklore that in 2009, the European Union, which Ireland or the Republic of Ireland is a part of, classified the leprechaun as a protected species. In 1989, P.J. O'Hare was a pub owner in Carlingford, County Louth in Ireland. One morning, O'Hare heard screaming coming from the nearby Foy Mountain. So he went to go check it out. When he got closer to the mountain, he found a wishing well. And what he saw on the wishing well changed his life and the life of the EU's protected species forever. Because you see, on the wishing well, he found a little tiny green suit with bones that had been smothered to ashes. When O'Hare picked up the green suit, he found 4 gold coins in the pocket. Now, O'Hare was so proud of his findings that he ended up putting the little clothes and the coins on display in his pub. Now, one of his friends did not believe that his findings were authentic, and I can see it. Probably for years on him, his friend kind of teased him about the leprechaun that he had found, yada, yada, yada. Well, the teasing got so relentless that his friend decided that he was going to start going on these leprechaun hunts. And so now, even to this day, in the month of March, on Sundays at 2 p.m. in this town, there are official leprechaun hunts. Well, unfortunately, O'Hare eventually passed away. And when he died, the family sold his pub. And so his buddy, his friend that didn't quite believe him, went to go collect his display case of the leprechaun's clothes and his coins. The only problem was the coins were nowhere to be found. Well, a few days later, his friend was repairing a stone wall near his home when he found the coins had magically showed up inside the stone wall. After that experience of magically finding these coins again, his friend started to then experience leprechauns. At that point, his friend went from being a doubter of the authenticity of these leprechauns to fighting for their protection. You see, he believed that the leprechauns still lived in Foy Mountain. Since all the average-sized humans had moved to Ireland, the leprechauns had to move underground. And inside that mountain was obviously their little kingdom. So he did what anybody would do, and he petitioned the EU to protect the leprechauns. In fact, they figured out there's about 236 leprechauns living in Ireland to this day, most of which are probably living in Foy Mountain. And if you're ever there at Foy Mountain in Ireland, you will see a sign telling you that they are a protected species. Now, we do know that there have been pygmy bodies found in the United States. And that's important to remember because, you see, Ireland's not the only place that apparently is home to the leprechaun. In 1917, the Guinness Book of World Records recognized Mill Inns Park in Portland, Oregon as the smallest park in the world, measuring 2 feet. And in 1948, Oregon Journal columnist Dick Fagan reported on an official leprechaun sighting around this park. You see, it appears that the center of the park was originally supposed to be a place for a power line. And so there was a hole that had been placed in the ground, but then it got left behind, and Dick Fagan would sit in his office and watch out his window at this desolate piece of property that wasn't taken care of. There were lots of weeds. And so one day, Dick Fagan decided that he was going to go out and plant some flowers in this little area. Well, apparently, when he went out there to plant these flowers, he ran across a leprechaun. Now, some sources say the leprechaun's name was Patrick O'Toole, while others say the leprechaun was named Dennis O'Toole. Unfortunately, Mr. Fagan is no longer with us to tell us what his first name really was. But what we do know from his findings is that this leprechaun was the patriarch of the O'Toole leprechaun colony in Portland, Oregon. Throughout the rest of his life, Dick Fagan continued to write stories about this leprechaun colony and his interactions with them. Unfortunately, Dick Fagan passed away in 1969, long before he was able to see the leprechauns become an official part of Portland. That happened in 1976, and the park officially became the Leprechauns Park, and the leprechauns were officially recognized as citizens of Portland. Now, the weather in Oregon and the weather in Ireland are probably pretty similar, so maybe you could understand why leprechauns would choose a place like Oregon. However, there's one more place that I want to bring up in our story today, and that's Mobile, Alabama. Now, Mobile, Alabama is hot. It's right on the Gulf. It's very close to New Orleans. Very, very different from the weather in Portland, Oregon, or in Ireland. But on March 14th, 2006, the news came out to film a group of people who were standing around a tree claiming they had seen a leprechaun in that tree. In fact, they claimed that when you put the light up on the tree, the leprechaun disappeared, but when the light was down, you could totally see there was a leprechaun in the tree. Now, this happened 3 days before St. Patrick's Day, and I will say the clip of this news report went viral because people in the South are my favorite people because South, but people in the South can be really, really animated. And this group of people looking up into the tree were super stoked and super excited about seeing this phenomenon. You see, down here in the South, as we've mentioned many times before, we got a lot of folklore. There's a lot of strange stuff that happens here down in the South. So seeing a supernatural being is not weird. It's just kind of like, oh dang, yep, there it is. In fact, the story went so viral that the local leprechaun hunter named DeMarco Morris was interviewed on the news. Now, DeMarco Morris told the news that his great-grandfather was from Ireland. He also held up an instrument and said that it was a flute passed down from his great-great-grandfather to lure leprechauns. Now, first, people were very skeptical of DeMarco Morris because, well, he's a Black American.
Man, you ain't never heard no Black Irish. Black Irish. That's right. Who you think invented the Mac Red? Lucky Charms. Huh? Sarah Rock J.
And he said his great-great-grandfather was from Ireland, and Irish people are pretty white. However, that didn't really ruffle my feathers because I have many friends who are Black or Asian that have white ancestors. That's not uncommon. But what was really interesting about DeMarco Moore is that his flute that apparently was passed down from his great-grandfather was actually a pipe. Over time, it came out that the likelihood of there being a leprechaun in the tree in Mobile, Alabama on that night was pretty low. In fact, they have a suspect, a man who is a little person who apparently just wanted to play a prank. I don't know. But it still begs the question, are there leprechauns down here in the South? Now, the story from Mobile, Alabama is quite comical, and it did put a smile on my face.
Welcome back. I know this is a side of the studio you guys don't normally see. Those of you that don't watch the live streams. I try to change it up on occasion, make it a little interesting. But I want to do things different for this video because this is a whole different kind of video. Not only did I go to somebody else for the information, but I just couldn't see a way to top the research that Bryce had already done. It's like I said in the beginning, she's awesome. And that girl knows her business. So my advice to you, go over and check out Esoteric Atlanta right here on YouTube. Bryce is good. Bryce is good. And the research that she done on the leprechaun left nothing to be desired. She covered everything from A to Z. I couldn't have done better myself. So like I said, I hope you guys are enjoying Irish American Heritage Month here on Living History's Mysteries. We still got about half the month left, and there's a lot more folklore, myth, mystery, legend, history, culture, everything to go over. But that's all I got for you guys today. Don't forget, if you have suggestions on things you would like to hear about, leave a comment below. Tell us about it. You never know. If we can find enough information on it, not only will we do a video on something you asked for, but you and your channel, you even get shouted out here. So until next time, take care of yourselves. Take care of each other. God bless you. God love you. We do. We'll... Really? You couldn't say anything to me? Not a call, not a nothing? We'll see you out there.